So you spend about a third of your life entirely paralyzed, basically hallucinating vividly in the dark.
Right, which sounds terrifying when you put it like that.
It really does. But, we all do it. It's just a bizarre biological necessity. But the way native English speakers actually talk about this strange daily habit reveals a whole secondary language.
It really does.
Mhm.
Because when people talk about sleep, they rarely use those, clinical medical words.
Yeah, nobody talks like a textbook.
Exactly. Instead, they use this massive collection of colorful idioms, physical metaphors, and very specific phrases that describe their habits, their struggles, and even their life goals.
And if you are joining us today as the learner, someone actively learning English, mastering this specific vocabulary is basically a superpower.
Oh, absolutely. It's the key to sounding natural.
Right. It helps you sound totally relaxed in everyday conversations. So today we are skipping the doctor's office. We are doing a deep dive into a fascinating 3-part guide on the everyday English language of sleep. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and before we jump right into the specific phrases, I do want to establish our tone and pace for today.
Good idea.
We are going to take things at a nice, relaxed, measured speed today. Because, if you are listening to this deep dive to improve your English, we want to make sure you have the time to really hear and absorb these phrases.
Yeah, we're not going to rush it.
Exactly. Because language isn't just a list of vocabulary to memorize for a test. It's really a window into how a culture views daily life. The words native speakers choose to describe their sleep actually tell us a whole lot about modern society.
I think that is the perfect approach. We will definitely take our time, and a great place to begin is with what I like to call the zoo of sleep.
The zoo of sleep, I like that.
Right, because before we can even talk about the act of sleeping or, the problems we have with it, we kind of have to identify who we are when the sun goes down. It's like we all belong to different animal kingdoms at night. Which kingdom do you belong to?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because we all have these internal biological rhythms. Some people naturally have a ton of energy at night, and some people naturally have all their energy in the morning.
Yeah.
But instead of using scientific terms like, say, chronotypes, everyday English relies on animal imagery to describe these sleep identities.
So the first major identity from our source material is the night owl. Now, an owl is a nocturnal bird, meaning it naturally hunts and is active in the dark.
Right, they sleep all day.
Exactly. So if someone says, I am a night owl, they are claiming that identity. They are telling you they stay up very late and actually focus better after the sun goes down.
You might picture someone sitting at their computer at midnight, maybe writing code or working on a creative project, just feeling completely awake.
Or just watching like one more episode of a sci-fi show until 2 in the morning.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, we've all been there. But then on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we have the early bird. And this phrase comes from that old saying, the early bird catches the worm.
Ah, right. Meaning the bird who wakes up with the sun gets the best food.
Exactly. So an early bird is someone who genuinely loves waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning. They feel their absolute best while the rest of the world is still asleep.
What's fascinating here is how the English language takes something completely invisible, like our internal energy levels, and makes it visible by using these physical animals.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Right.
Right.
Because you can't see a biological rhythm, but you can instantly picture an owl sitting in the dark or, a little bird chirping at sunrise. It just gives people a very quick, highly visual way to explain their personality to a coworker or a friend.
It really does. And English uses that same trick, using physical objects to describe invisible habits when we talk about the quality of our sleep.
Yes, definitely.
For example, my absolute favorite phrase, sleep like a log.
That is such a vivid one. Let's visualize that phrase for a moment. A log is a thick, heavy piece of wood that's been cut from a tree.
Just a big chunk of wood.
Right. And if you leave a log on the ground, it does absolutely nothing. It doesn't move. It doesn't react to wind or noise. It is just completely dead weight.
So when you say, I slept like a log last night, you are telling someone that you slept incredibly deeply. You didn't move a single muscle. You were practically frozen to the mattress.
Which perfectly introduces the next two identity phrases. If you always sleep like a log, you are what we call a heavy sleeper.
Ah.
A heavy sleeper is just someone who is very difficult to wake up.
That's the person who needs like 3 separate alarms ringing at maximum volume just to open their eyes.
Exactly. And the opposite of that is the light sleeper. If you are a light sleeper, the tiniest noise will pull you right out of your dream.
Oh, it's the worst. Like a car drives down the street a block away, or a cat just walks softly past your bedroom door, and boom, your eyes are wide open.
Yeah, it's tough. But by combining these terms, you can quickly communicate your entire nighttime profile to someone else. You could say, I'm a night owl, but unfortunately, I'm a light sleeper.
Yeah, that paints a very clear, relatable picture of your life.
It does.
But, understanding our animal-like sleep identities is really only helpful when things are going well.
That's true.
What happens when your inner night owl is forced to wake up early for a corporate job and your biology starts fighting back? That leads us to a whole different vocabulary, the language of struggle.
Because sleep certainly doesn't always cooperate. And the English language has developed very specific phrases to describe the frustration of a bad night.
And the first one is so vivid. Let's say it clearly for the listener. Tossing and turning.
This is a highly physical, almost athletic phrase. To toss means to throw something, and to turn means to roll your body over.
Right.
So when you are tossing and turning, you are essentially in a wrestling match with your own bed.
Mm-hmm.
You slip the pillow to the cool side, you kick off the blankets because you're hot, you roll onto your left side, then your right side.
Your brain is just too active and your body simply won't settle down. We have all been there, just staring at the ceiling, tossing and turning.
Definitely. Now, if that happens to you every single night, there is a formal medical word for it.
Yeah, the clinical diagnosis is insomnia. Insomnia is the chronic inability to fall asleep or stay asleep.
But here is a critical tip for sounding natural in English. Native speakers rarely use that medical word in casual conversation.
Right, it sounds a bit intense.
Exactly. If you are standing by the coffee machine at work, you probably wouldn't say, I have insomnia. That sounds very serious, almost like you're sharing a private medical record.
Yeah.
Instead, people use the softer, casual phrase, I'm having trouble sleeping.
I'm having trouble sleeping. That is a vital social distinction. Having trouble sleeping softens the problem. It frames the situation as a temporary, relatable annoyance rather than, a permanent medical condition.
It invites sympathy rather than clinical concern?
Exactly. It's much more conversational. Now, let's look at the morning. Let's imagine you finally stopped tossing and turning. You finally fell asleep, but then the sun comes up and things go terribly wrong. Our sources highlight a massive difference between two phrases that sound incredibly similar, but they have completely opposite meanings. Oversleeping versus sleeping in.
This is perhaps the most important distinction in our entire discussion today, especially for professional environments.
For sure.
Let's start with oversleeping. Oversleeping is an accident. It means you slept past the time you were supposed to wake up, usually because you missed your alarm.
Yeah, to use an analogy, oversleeping is like driving on the highway and suddenly realizing your brakes are cut.
That's a stressful image.
But it's true. It's a moment of pure panic. You wake up, you look at the clock, you realize you are an hour late for work, and you just jump out of bed terrified.
Now contrast that panic with the phrase sleeping in. Sleeping in is a deliberate, joyful choice.
The best choice.
Right. It's Saturday morning, it's raining outside, you don't have to be anywhere, so you consciously decide to ignore the clock and stay in your warm bed until 10 in the morning.
So going back to the car analogy, sleeping in is like cruising down a beautiful country road on a Sunday with your foot off the gas pedal. It's totally relaxing.
Yeah.
But here's why mixing these two phrases up is so dangerous. Imagine a guy named Bob. Bob is an hour late for his shift at the office. He runs in, looks at his boss and says, I'm so sorry I'm late. I slept in.
Oh, wow. The boss would be furious.
Right.
Because Bob just said, I'm sorry I'm late. I made the deliberate choice to stay in bed instead of coming to my job.
Exactly. Bob needs to say, I overslept. That tells the boss it was an accident. The alarm didn't go off. It wasn't a choice. Oversleeping is the bad accident. Sleeping in is the good choice. Never tell your boss you slept in.
That context is everything. The words we choose dictate the reaction we get. And we see that same principle applied to how we describe our tiredness, too.
Oh, yeah.
English has several distinct adjectives for fatigue. And they aren't just synonyms. They describe entirely different physical states.
Let's break those down. The first is exhausted. Now, if you are exhausted, your physical and mental energy is simply at zero. You might feel exhausted after running a marathon or, after staying awake for 48 hours straight. There's just nothing left in the tank.
Then we have sleepy. Sleepy is a very immediate, localized feeling. It specifically means your eyelids are heavy.
Like you physically can't keep them open.
Right. Your brain is signaling that it wants to enter the sleep cycle right now. You might yawn, and your eyes physically want to close.
Next is drowsy. I always think of drowsy as a chemical feeling.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because you aren't necessarily exhausted from hard physical work. Instead, you feel heavy and cloudy, like the feeling you get after eating a massive holiday dinner, or maybe after taking strong allergy medication. Your reflexes are just slow.
And finally, we have burned out. Burned out goes far beyond physical tiredness. It is a state of deep emotional and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's what happens when you work a highly demanding job for months without a break. Your spirit is tired, not just your body.
Now, a common strategy people use to fight tiredness is taking a power nap. A power nap is a very short sleep, usually 20 to 30 minutes right in the middle of the day. The goal is to quickly recharge your batteries without entering deep sleep, so you wake up feeling sharp.
Very popular in corporate culture right now.
It is, but wait, I have to push back on this based on those definitions we just covered.
Please do. What's the conflict?
Well, a 20-minute power nap is a great fix if you are just feeling sleepy after lunch. But if someone is genuinely burned out, like if their emotional battery is completely destroyed from 6 months of working overtime, a 20-minute nap on the office couch isn't going to fix a thing.
No, definitely not.
Burnout requires a vacation. Or a new job entirely. That requires a bigger lifestyle change than just being sleeky.
And you've just hit on exactly why mastering these nuances is so critical for English learners. If you tell a manager or a friend, I'm feeling sleepy, they might just suggest you grab a cup of coffee or take a quick power nap.
Sure.
But if you say, I am completely burned out, that signals a structural crisis. It tells them your workload is unsustainable. If you use the wrong word, you get the wrong solution.
So what does this all mean? It means we have to be precise. The right word gets the right result.
Exactly.
Okay, we figured out our sleep identities, and we've learned how to describe the struggles and the types of tiredness. Now, let's explore the actual mechanics of going to bed. How do we talk about getting under the blankets without sounding like we are reading a grammar textbook?
Native speakers rely heavily on idioms for this part of the day. Let's look at one of the most common and arguably strangest phrases for going to bed. Hit the sack.
Hit the sack. It is such a funny phrase. You're just standing in your living room, you stretch, and you announce to your family, well, I'm going to hit the sack.
It sounds so odd out of context. But to understand this, we have to look at history. Hundreds of years ago, before modern coil mattresses or, memory foam, a bed was literally a large cloth sack filled with hay, straw, or feathers.
Oh, wow.
So going to bed literally meant laying your body down onto a sack.
But what I find so interesting is the verb hit. Resting is supposed to be the most peaceful, quiet part of the human experience. But native English speakers use this violent, aggressive verb, hit the sack.
Yeah, it's very forceful.
And we do the exact same thing with the phrase crash. Someone might say, I'm so tired, I'm going to crash. It's like we view falling asleep as a sudden physical collision.
It's a very perceptive point. It highlights the often fast-paced, exhausted nature of modern life. We work so hard that we don't gently go to bed, we collapse into it, we hit it, we crash.
Yeah.
However, once we are actually in the sack, the vocabulary changes to become much softer.
Yes. That brings us to the phrase drifted off.
Think about the word drift. A piece of wood drifting on a quiet lake, slowly carried by the gentle movement of the water. It's entirely effortless.
Right.
So when you say, I hit the sack and immediately drifted off, you are painting a picture of a very peaceful, smooth transition from being awake to being asleep. You just floated away into unconsciousness.
It's a beautiful mental image. But as our learner listeners start using these phrases, our sources point out a very common grammar trap that we really need to clear up. It involves the difference between the word sleep and the word sleepy.
Yes, this is a fundamental rule to remember. Sleep is an action. It is a verb. For example, I sleep 8 hours a night. On the other hand, sleepy is a state of being. It is an adjective describing how you feel.
So you'll sometimes hear people say, I am very sleepy. Logically, that makes sense if you are translating directly from certain other languages. But in English, it's incorrect.
Right, because you cannot be an action.
Exactly. You have to use the adjective. You must say, I am very sleepy.
Or if you want to use the verb, you say, I need to sleep. Keeping the verb and the adjective in their proper places instantly elevates your spoken English. It just makes your sentences sound structured and natural.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The source material brings up a timeline distinction. There is a huge difference between the phrase go to bed and the phrase go to sleep.
And to a lot of people, those might sound like identical actions.
Right, but they aren't anymore. Go to bed simply describes the physical act of moving your body from the living room and putting it onto the mattress. But go to sleep is the precise biological moment your brain actually shuts down and you lose consciousness.
And historically, those two things happened at almost the exact same time. 50 or 60 years ago, you went to bed, you turned off the lamp, and you went to sleep.
But think about how modern technology, specifically the smartphone, has completely shattered that timeline. Today, there is a massive gap between going to bed and going to sleep.
Oh, definitely. This raises an important question about our modern habits. The bed is no longer just a piece of furniture for sleeping. It has become a movie theater, a communication hub, and a late-night office.
Exactly. You might tell a friend, I went to bed at 10 o'clock, but I didn't go to sleep until midnight. Because for those 2 hours, you were lying in the dark, staring at a glowing screen, scrolling through social media, watching videos, or reading articles.
Yeah, going to bed has just become another location to be fully awake.
It's so true.
The vocabulary split perfectly mirrors the technological shift. The English language adapted to describe this new reality. Going to bed is the location change. Going to sleep is the delayed biological event.
It's amazing how language just bends to fit how we actually live. Now, to finish up our deep dive today, let's talk about what happens after you finally put the phone down and go to sleep.
The best part.
The dreams. The source material makes a beautiful distinction between two very small prepositions. Dream about versus dream of.
Prepositions can be tricky for learners, but this difference is profound. Let's start with dream about. When you use about, you are referring to the literal visual stories that play in your head while you are unconscious.
Okay, so the actual sleep dream.
Exactly. For example, you wake up in the morning and tell your partner, I had the weirdest night. I dreamed about a giant cat driving a bus.
It's a literal movie that played in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Usually random, sometimes totally bizarre. But then we have dream of.
Yes. If you say, I dream of starting my own business, or I dream of living by the ocean, you aren't talking about something that happened while you were asleep. You are talking about your deepest ambitions, your major life goals.
It completely changes the word from a nighttime hallucination into a lifelong vision.
It really does.
Well, we covered a lot of ground today. We started by figuring out our animal identities, whether you're a night owl burning the midnight oil or an early bird catching the worm. We learned how to describe the physical struggle of tossing and turning, and we realized why we should never, ever tell our boss that we slept in when we actually overslept.
Hey, definitely keep that one in mind. We also explored the violent history of hitting the sack and how modern smartphones forced us to separate going to bed from going to sleep.
Yeah.
For anyone practicing these phrases, try using them in your head tonight.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, as you get into the blankets, tell yourself you're hitting the sack and notice if you drift off or if you toss and turn.
Tie the vocabulary to the physical action. That's how it sticks.
And before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to think about regarding that last phrase we discussed. We noted that English uses the exact same root word, dream, for two very different concepts.
Right.
We use it for the weird, random stories our brains hallucinate in the dark when we dream about things, and we use it for our most important, driving ambitions in the waking world when we dream of things. If we connect this to the bigger picture, does that imply something profound about how English speakers view success? Does the language itself suggest a cultural belief that our greatest, most important life goals are actually born deep within our subconscious minds?
Wow, that is a fascinating question to carry with you today. Are our biggest waking ambitions just an extension of what we process in the dark? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep practicing, keep paying attention to the words you use, and tonight we wish you a very tight sleep.
Sleep well. Goodbye.